Hello! This is my hardcore novice review of the Monster Outbreak Tour's stop in Baltimore, aka my very first hardcore show. And this is the best I'm going to get this image to look, so take it or leave it. Now, I've been listening to loud, heavy music since I can remember. My dad played The Who, Cream. I'd discover in chronological order, but skipping tons to save time. Guns N' Roses, Green Jello, Nirvana, Biohazard, Tool, Cannibal Corpse, The Locust, Lightning Bolt, Blood Brothers, Daughters, The Dillinger Escape Plan, Refused, and of course many more. And I had been to multiple shows for The Dillinger Escape Plan and Refused and The Locust and Lightning Bolt, Cannibal Corpse, but I had never been to a hardcore show. I watched tons thanks to Hate56 and 197 Media. I had no idea how people actually enjoyed having human bodies as projectiles fly out and land on them. The energy and insanity intrigued me, maybe not enough to risk my physical well-being, though. I was more than happy to just watch from the safety of my computer screen. That is, until I stumbled upon Drain, thanks to a 197 Media video. The second I hit play, I was already into it. It started with Sam talking to the crowd, and I was already drawn in and infatuated with his stage presence, his energy. It was almost like I knew I would like the music automatically. And I did. I loved it. It didn't seem as hard and as aggressive and as angry as the other hardcore live shows that I was watching, but it definitely had as much and, dare I say, even more energy. It only took a few chords strummed, a few drum heads whacked, and I was officially a fan, and I was determined to see them live. But then there was COVID. I'll skip all that except to say that I had a lot of time to watch a lot more videos and would become even more determined to see them live. And then a few months ago, I discovered Gel, and just as quickly I took a liking to Drain, I took a same liking to Gel. I like the slightly old school sound of it, I love their energy, I love the way Sammy holds the left elbow up when shouting into the mic, I love the grooves and the chords just as much as Drain. And also, like the Drain shows, the crowds looked so fun, everyone looked so happy and energized and friendly and respectful of the potentially harmful physicality of being in those types of crowds. I wanted to see both bands so bad. I kept missing opportunities because any show that was close enough to get to was always on a day that I was unavailable. But as luck would have it, they announced a tour together. 3 locations that I could get to: New York, Philly, Baltimore. I unfortunately had to wait on my work schedule, which took so long that New York and Philly sold out. But thank the God I don't believe in that there were tickets still available for Baltimore when I knew that I was free. At first, I was a little worried that the show wouldn't be as chaotic as others because New York and Philly sold out so quick. Baltimore wasn't sold out. Was there just not a hardcore scene in Baltimore outside of fans of Turnstile? Boy, was I wrong. The Baltimore soundstage is just a much larger venue than the Brooklyn Monarch and First Unitarian Church. I actually wonder if the soundstage is bigger than both of them combined. But guess what? The show did sell out. Yes! And it was as chaotic, perhaps even more so than I had imagined. Now listen, I may not look it, but I'm 43 years old. I don't know if it's the genetics or the fact that I never smoked, I never did any drugs other than drinking a little bit, but I quit drinking too when I was 23. I've certainly had enough stress in my life that if I'm not aging on the outside, I'm sure there's something going on the inside. Actually, my age is taking its toll. My left knee has been hurting. My left shoulder cracks and pops. I get winded faster. I've gained weight while apparently shrinking a bit. What a mess. But I still had to be there. And I had to be right in the middle, right in the thick of it. At least for Gel and Drain. And it was so effing fantastic. It was also the first show where I got hurt in a way that I was legitimately concerned. One last little piece of setup. A lot of really bad personal things happened to me in the past couple of years outside of COVID. Those things still cause me issues today, and so I was going to the show with little sleep and not much to eat. I usually like to get to shows as soon as the doors open, but I didn't get in until the first band was already playing. I've never been to Baltimore, but I really love the area where the soundstage is located. It's an intersection packed with entertainment and parking. I saw tons of people in the parking lot and in the store who were clearly dressed up for a hardcore show. There was no wait to get in because everyone was already inside. Security was friendly, but way more thorough than I ever remember from Dillinger and Refused shows that I'd been to in New York and Philly. There was a thorough pat-down as I faced them, another thorough pat-down facing away from them. They checked my keychain, they double-checked my keychain. It was weird to use my Apple Wallet to hold digital Ticketmaster tickets. I just felt so mainstream. So we went right to the front right side of the stage. There's a small elevated platform with a banister. It's kind of like a paddock where we could be really close but not technically at the stage. Still, the sound was perfectly clear. I wear earplugs now, but it still sounded fantastic. I hadn't heard of the other bands before, and I gave them a listen online first. They didn't grab me like Gel and Drain, but it didn't matter because seeing them all live was amazing. I loved all of them. My mind never wandered. I was engaged for all of the sets except for the beginning because I was a few minutes late. I missed it. It felt a little surreal to see all of these people doing all the things that I had only seen online. There's just a different presence and energy to the physical crowd as compared to a Cannibal Corpse and Refused show. Those shows have moshing, but it's not really like stage diving. The closest experience for me, I would say, is possibly the Dillinger Escape Plan shows, because that music is much more fractured and bombastic with the extreme tempo changes. I don't think musically you really have a solid chunk of time to do the type of dancing and moves people do at hardcore shows. I feel like the Dillinger Escape Plan themselves jump into the audience more than the audience does. So yeah, I enjoyed the opening bands. I enjoyed the music live far more than I did the albums, most likely because of the general experience of being there in person. I loved all of the lead singers' banter to the crowd. I was shocked when Gel was the second band to go up. I just assumed they would be right before Drain because I loved them so much and I thought they should be a headlining band. I first saw Maddie and I gasped. There's Maddie, the guitarist, in person. Was I a little starstruck? Yes. Was my jaw open a bit in amazement and excitement? Yes. And then there was Sammy. And then there was Anthony. And Bobco, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I don't know the drummer situation. The last few shows appear to have someone else, but I'm seeing the name Zach Miller. Regardless, anyway, I had to get down into the crowd. I had been waiting months to scream, "You cowards, come through!" The crowd was already getting crazy. I love how there was no band that was like an unknown opener that played to an audience that just stared and maybe bobbed their head. Most everyone, most all of the time, was fully physically into it, including with Gel. Because duh, of course with Gel. And of course I screamed along with the opening lyrics, despite my inability to really keep my footing. Everyone was all of a sudden a bit taller than me. I don't remember it being like that before. The air was already starting to get hot, and it was quickly starting to smell like sweat and beer. I was able to hold my own. I deliberately positioned myself as close to the center as possible to avoid the incoming human projectiles. By some way of the physicality of the crowd, I found myself pushed up against the front of the stage at one point. I had no idea I would even get that close. This is one of the most difficult shows I've been to where I tried to record the crowd while I'm in the crowd. Granted, I'm trying to be more present and in the moment and not film everything, but I wanted to at least have something from my exact perspective to look back on. But being right up against the stage made it a little bit easier, although stage divers were getting increasingly close and eventually were partially landing on me. But it was amazing how in the last few seconds before they launched, that was when my brain was really able to calculate just how much weight and the force of that weight that was coming at me. In videos, when you see people constantly diving into the crowd and seemingly crowd surfing effortlessly, it looks like there'd be no problem holding someone up because the crowd's so cramped together, the weight must be dispersed over like 10 people. Maybe I'm just incredibly weak, but holy hell was I not able to support the weight. Certainly not during the moment of impact. I don't know how these other people are doing it, especially when there's multiple stage divers at the same time landing in the same spot. Even if I was stronger, I'm not sure how I would be able to hold on to everyone when the floor is rapidly getting more slick and wet, maybe from spilled drinks or sweat, who knows. So it was difficult to keep my footing when my feet kept sliding around, and then you have the people standing all around you that you're getting pushed into, making it difficult to get your arms and legs in a position where you could brace for impact. I don't know if this crowd was younger. They probably are. I think 43 years old is a pretty high up there number for an audience member of this kind of music. So I'm sure they had more energy, more strength. They also probably have that invincibility mindset that I certainly had. I was quickly able to recognize several faces in the crowd, and I noticed that they were in the thick of it for the entire show. Unbelievable. Even with just a 30-minute set and then breaks in between the bands, I don't know how they maintained all of that energy for so long. But I held my own for all of Gel's set. I drove from Philly specifically to see them and Drain, and I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to finally be right there in the center of it. I can't believe how much energy they had after all of these shows that they've already done, all of the traveling. Touring has just got to be so grueling, and they put in so much energy at each show. But it's like each show is their only one. And I really respect that. I'm really thankful that they put in that much energy into everything. And so after Gel, I went back up to the side area with my girlfriend to watch the next bands. I'm trying to recover as much as possible before heading back down for Drain. And again, the next bands were equally as energetic and as amazing. It was an audience full of Energizer bunnies going nuts. It was so entertaining to watch all of it. A standout highlight was when Drug Church started talking about stage jiving and crowd surfing, and seeing the amount of people that were crowd surfing all at once for so long, and then that pop maneuver. I mean, come on. Here I am saying how I can't even take having people land on me, and now here's this crowd having people land on them, and then bouncing them up into the air, getting them airborne? How? Anytime I pushed my hand into the back of a person above me, it felt like I was pushing on a concrete ceiling. There was just no way that I was going to lift anything any higher. And my sincere apologies to those who I'm equating to a concrete ceiling. You aren't overweight. I'm understrengthed. And then it was time for Drain. I excitedly rushed back down to the crowd, thinking maybe I actually could still handle myself a bit because I had a chance to recover while everyone else was still wearing themselves down during all the other acts. Oh, how wrong I was. So I'm back on the floor. It's maybe 10 minutes before Drain comes out. I noticed a beach ball in the rafters when we first got in there. Was this a beach ball that was from an earlier show? Was it put up there during a sound check? Someone else's ball? Another band's beach ball? Regardless, once the other beach balls and pool noodles and flotation devices were released into the crowd, people started using them to try and knock off the one that was stuck, and all eyes were on it. It was very dramatic. It actually worked, and the crowd went nuts when they knocked the one down. But then another one got stuck, and the drama started all over again. So much so that almost everyone had their backs turned to the stage when Drain first walked out. Now, I knew they were coming out soon because of the Jaws theme and that other like surfer-type beach music. But have no fear. When Sam got on the mic, all attention was on the stage. And I was fully ready to shout the other words that I have been waiting months to do. Can you feel the fucking pressure? I was hoping to maybe sort of get at least a little footage of the first song, but It was impossible. The crowd crushed together so much, and the floor was so much more wet than before. There was just no way. I could not get my camera out. But I hoped that there were other people filming and I'd be able to look at that footage later, and that turned out to be absolutely true, thank goodness. I unfortunately have to say that most of Drain's set was actually a blur. They recently released a new album, which I was not yet familiar with, so there weren't songs that I had a strong connection to yet, though I did their earlier album, the album before, the California Cursed album, and the crowd was just so much more chaotic than before. It was probably the most chaotic crowd that I was ever in, and that just took up most of my attention, and not in a bad way. It was mostly exciting, a little scary. I always felt the general energy of the music, and I was constantly moving, jumping, dancing. As a drummer, I did extend my arm up as best as I could and pump my fist or waved my hand to my favorite rhythm parts of some of the songs. I would sometimes catch a beach ball and bounce it behind me. I got several pool noodles that I swung around over my head. There we go with that hand. Like sort of like the way a cowboy swings a lasso before grabbing someone, and then I'd swing it and throw it back in whichever direction or to the side, wherever. It was so awesome to actually interact with all of these fun, colorful beach items that I had seen so many times before in all of these live Drain videos. All these colorful things that make Drain's performances stand out even more from the other performances. Obviously, I've touched beach balls and pool noodles, but there was just something very exciting and special about these beach balls and pool noodles and flotation devices. These ones that Drain released to the audience. There was one very specific moment during Drain's set I do remember, and will never forget. With about 30 seconds left of the last song, California Cursed, one of my favorites for obvious reasons, and thus the last song of the entire night, I was somehow once again pushed toward the very center of the stage. A bunch of people had started to climb up on the stage, and I started to try and find it in me to get up on stage with them. Because again, I knew this happened all the time at Drain shows because all of the videos I've watched, I have been and will always be far too scared, too shy to stage dive. But I was wondering if I could have the guts to get up on stage and just sort of mosh around, dance around with everyone else. I had no idea if I would even get that close to the stage, but there I was. Both of my palms were flat on the stage, bracing myself from all the pushing from behind me. There's dozens of feet stomping and running past me on the stage. Was this it? Was this my time? And then someone jumped off the stage and right onto me. Not terrible, but then a second later, someone else landed on me. I don't know if it was from the stage or someone rolling across the audience onto me from the side. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who they were or what they looked like, but my left shoulder felt an absolutely massive impact on it. My entire left arm immediately went numb with this faint tingling. It hurt really bad, extremely bad. I was actually scared. And I had visions of the hospital, visions of a long and expensive recovery from shoulder surgery, visions of losing my ability to drum or DJ. I didn't know if I should try moving my arm or not, but in the moment I just decided to start moving it to see if I could. But mostly I'm holding it with my right hand, and I just started pushing my way back through the crowd. I got to a little bit of an opening when I reached the pit, although there's still, of course, all of these people still working their way towards the stage that I was bumping into, trying to get around. I got near the entrance of the bathrooms, and there wasn't anyone there, so I stopped. I continued trying to move my arm. The numb felt even more, that numb feeling, although I don't know how it's possible. How do you feel more numb? It's like, how do you feel more of nothing? But it's the only way to explain it. And I felt the tingling increasing, but I could see that my arm was moving on its own. My hand was moving on its own. My fingers were moving on their own. I was in total self-diagnosis mode. I started moving both hands and arms in the same way to see if I could. Was there anything my left arm wasn't able to do that my right arm could do? It appeared to be doing all the same things as my right arm, just with a ton of pain. But is the only reason I'm able to move it because of adrenaline? What does a dislocated shoulder even feel like? What other kinds of injuries are there? Could I have sustained any type of injury in which you can move your arm at first, but it gets increasingly worse over time? I made my way towards the front door. There was a small single-person alcohol station of some sort. I just threw my arm up there onto the little banister thing, and the bartender or whomever was there was asking if I was okay, and I explained the situation. They offered me sympathy. The show's over now. People are leaving, and I had to push my way through everyone going in the opposite direction to leave. I'm going back over to where my girlfriend has always been, that paddock area on the front right side of the stage. There was someone else leaving who looked at me and asked if I was all right. They definitely seemed concerned. I sort of laughed it off and said, well, my shoulder got crushed, but at least I'm moving it. As the adrenaline and shock wore down, I felt my whole body a little shaky because I was nervous about the injury. My girlfriend was kind and smart enough to get a small ice pack from the bar. Maybe that made me survive a life and death situation. I started to feel confident enough that I would survive this, however painful the recovery. I should take this time to mention that my left leg was also slammed into, the left side of my thigh, almost smack in the middle between my knee and then my hip. I don't remember if that was during jail or drain, but at least it sort of took away the pain, or at least noticing the pain I'd been feeling in my left kneecap for several weeks. I was confident enough to stand in line at the merch table. It took forever, and the shirt I wanted only had extremely large sizes left, but my second choice, this one right here, this one was out of the size that I wanted, a large, but I got this medium, and it seems to fit me all right. We headed out the door. My girlfriend talked to another security person who retrieved another ice pack. Both were free of charge. There was another girl out there who also had an ice pack. It was on her head, so I didn't feel like such a loner anymore. When we were leaving through that front door, I saw Sammy from Gel walk in, and I gasped. It almost made me totally forget about my pain for a moment. But Sammy passed by so fast I didn't have a chance to say anything. Luck would have it, however, that as we got onto the sidewalk, there was the rest of Gel and the tour van. I recognized it from that Bus Invaders video. I had to stop and say hello and let them know how much I enjoy their music, and that I drove all the way from Philly to see them because I wanted to see them as much as Drain. The bassist shook my hand and asked my name, and that's when Sammy came back and said thank you to me also. But then there was a bunch of other people that came over to talk to them, and they were far more excited to see them, and they hugged and all, and it's all right. Who am I? I was well enough to head into the 7-Eleven across the street. It was packed with other people from the show and other people to get some Gatorade and snacks, and I drove the 2 hours back to Philadelphia. I was definitely worried about if any of my pain would be worse the next day. When I got home, I took a shower and some Tylenol and threw on a bunch of ice packs, which I believe helped. And I woke up the next day without even bruising. Although surprisingly, I never thought anything happened to my right shoulder, but there was a bunch of scrapes. I hadn't noticed it until I saw it in the mirror when I took a shower last night. But I was still in pain for sure. At least it didn't feel worse. It's still hard to move my neck like that, to move my head side to side, up and down. It's stiff, it hurts, but it's doable. That's what she said. It was so great to rewatch the little bit of footage that I did get, and the additional footage from my girlfriend, and then to see a couple of clips online. I even had a brief interaction with a concert goer on Twitter. It was super fun. I definitely want to go to another hardcore show, although I think my sad lesson has been learned that I'm either too old, too weak, or both to remain in the thick of it. It's always where I wanted to be, and every show I've gone to, back to my first official rock concert in high school, I went to a radio station that held a small concert somewhere in New Jersey outside of some stadium where the lineup was super unusual. Fury and the Slaughterhouse, Sophie B. Hawkins, the headliner was Weezer. The Blue Album was the only thing that they had out, and I knew every song. It was my first time in or around a pit, which I'm sure was the tamest one that I'd ever be at, but it immediately solidified my desire to be in the middle of all the action. Side note, I remember seeing Lords of Acid at the Hammerstein Ballroom, I think it was. Definitely New York. The mosh pit would eventually force me into two very scantily clad ladies lustfully rubbing against each other, and I got all super weird and awkward and nerdy trying to apologize for interfering with what they had going on. I remember knocking down, surely by accident, two people at once in a mosh pit for a hardcore techno DJ, Lenny D, in Thompson Square Park, also in New York. Check the video on my channel. The link is in the description. I'm in the blue shirt, the neon pinkish red upside down triangle thing, long brown hair. Now I'm really getting off topic. The bottom line is it was 100% a positive experience at the Monster Energy Outbreak tour in Baltimore. The bands were great. Stage presence was great. The crowd was great. I want to do it again. I just can't be as physical as I'd like, which makes me sad. But I'm so glad I got to meet members of Gel, and I am absolutely looking forward to another show. And that's my review of the Outbreak, Monster Energy Outbreak, Gel, Drain, Drug Church, Combust, Magnitude show. It was awesome. My first hardcore show. And I survived it. I'm living proof that you can survive a hardcore show when you're 43 and not really fit to do this kind of stuff. I'm gonna go ice my neck.